Recording in progress.
Welcome back. Good afternoon. Director Fike, how's your sound? Good, thumbs up. Director David off?
Yeah, can you hear me, Chair?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Hanegraaff. Let's look for Director Hanegraaff. I don't see her. Anybody texting Director Hanegraaff right now just to see if she's having technical issues? Can somebody do that?
I can do it.
Okay, we got it. Aiden's gonna do it. Thank you. Okay, folks. We are going to start with not what's next on the agenda. Hold on. Flip your page.
4.4.
So Director Neal would like to make a motion. Go ahead, Director Neal.
What did I say?
I'd like to move reconsideration.
I would like to move reconsideration of item 4.4. That was moved to refer to March. And I would like to move that it, thank you.
Seconded, but I believe you need to include what you're going to be doing. It's like an amendment. So you're including option 2 in the report.
Yes, so I'll pull up the report. And I would like to move, after consideration with staff, during the break, which is why I was late, coming back.
Sorry, which item?
4.4. Rezoning. I would like to move recommend option number 2, that the regional district, I'm doing it from the staff report, not from the agenda because it's not on the agenda, that the RDCK zoning amendment bylaw 2988 2024 being a bylaw to amend regional district Central Kootenai zoning bylaw 16785 2004 is hereby given third reading by content, and that consideration of adoption be withheld for this until the final following item has been obtained. Approval from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure pursuant to section whatever of the Transportation Act control access.
Thank you. So I'm just going to verify the process, and that is what you directed. Yep. Reconsideration with the different motion included. Yeah. And Jackman seconded.
I'll second. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's been moved and seconded. Discussion. I think you figured out that this was the more appropriate process for what you wanted to do with it.
Yes.
Further you want to add?
I did consult with staff, Sadie, and this pathway ensures that there's still many steps the applicant would need to go through, ensuring septic is appropriate with the secondary field. So all of those boxes would need to be checked off prior to it coming to the board for final approval. So it's just one more step in the process.
Okay, great. I'm just going to interject for 1 second. If we can have, sir, welcome to our table. If you could sit in the public section over here, that would be helpful. Then we can actually see you. So, oh yeah, there's a plug-in over there as well. You can use the media desk as well. My apologies. If we can, as a team, help people sit over there unless they're out of room. Thank you. Okay then, so the motion's on the floor. Is there discussion? Looking around the room. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is that it, Ange?
So now we have to have it as a main motion. Yeah, because it was treated similar.
I'd like to move it as a main motion.
Seconded. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Hi, Director Hanegraaff. Okay, thank you for coming back. Okay, so that's done. And Stuart, I'm sorry, you needed to make a quick but I think it's important for people to know when it comes to parking, please.
Oh, through the chair, do not park in the driveway here. for maybe the Nelson Ready Mix. They are starting to tow cars that are there. I think there's a member of the public who's got their Toyota Highlander at the back there. We'll have to wait till the public maybe comes back and make an announcement. But just for directors, you happen to run out of space here, try to find a space along the fence of the water, because they've said we can't park there with the trucks going back and forth.
So that's on the road over here, not in our parking lot. Cunningham?
Thank you. And further to that, if I may, where the handicap parking is, used to be handicap parking when we first bought the building, but we moved handicap parking over to the side there when now there's no parking. And that left 2 more spaces here at the front. Is it possible to consider doing that again?
I'll look into it.
Thank you. Okay, we are on item 5.5, grants, discretionary. Would anyone? Graham?
Sorry, through the chair, I think you missed the quarterly report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw Mike come in the room too. Questions on the quarterly report? Go ahead, Graham.
Thank you through the chair. So I analyzed the quarterly report, and if anybody wants a copy of it, I'm happy to share it. So I just thought I'd give a quick summary that there's 137 total actions. 55 are in development and community sustainability, 22 in environmental services, 17 in community services, 11 in fire, and 32 in corporate. And 77 of these are prior to this term. So 56% of these actions were not included for discussions with new directors, and 27% of these, or 37 of them, are over 5 years old. So the reason I'm saying this is because I'm wondering how this aligns with our strategic priority of effective service delivery. And I'm wondering about a possibility, if directors, and this is through the chair tonight, if directors could ask for a review or a workshop or something to review some of these very old actions to see if they are still relevant, or if we as a team might want to bring some no further actions to some of these plans to make us vote more efficient overall.
Mike, go ahead.
It's through the chair, but probably Stuart's a better choice to answer that specifically about
through
solutions.
Through the chair, I think we definitely, if there's an individual item that's related to one electoral area or municipality on there, and you wish to move no further action on, that's definitely within director purview. I think that to the extent that we have items on here that are old and could be directed to subcommittees, North Kootenay Lake, Crescent Valley Services, that's probably a better spot for those. For ones that are more broad that have been sitting for a while, we definitely could do some analysis on that and see where the appropriate spot would be to have those discussions, and possibly bring something to the board to work through. Yeah.
Thank you. So supplemental, I'm just wondering how the board feels about that.
So we can entertain a bit of a discussion on it, but if we want more on that, we can flag it for future so we can deep dive into it, but we'll just be cautious on how much time we take given the rest we have to cover today. So with that, we have, can you add McFadden, please? Director Page, Jackman, then McFadden.
Thank you. I feel the same. And I would just, and I would, what we had done in Recreation 5, when I take over as chair.
Through the chair, please. They can't hear you.
When we had taken over Recreation 5 a number of years ago, we had similar scenarios are often attached to a committee or a service. What we did as a practice is we started putting them on the end of our agenda as a informational, and we went through them and picked off 2 or 3 every single meeting and just asked the question, what does this look like? Why is it here? And slowly over time, we whittled that list down to, from dozens to 2 or 3 things we were really reading. And it was at every meeting, it was part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
So we couldn't do that with the board, but appropriately where there's a service that can cover it, we can send those that way. Jackman?
Sure, thanks. I brought this up to CEO a few times. I didn't bring my notes this time. I will do a little chart. What's 0 to 20? What's 20 to 40? Et cetera, et cetera. Every time it's a Weibull distribution system, look at it. 0 is fairly high. In the middle, we have stuff that's almost halfway, very low complete. Then I've done a cross-tracking of how many years. And the Weibull distribution, as opposed to normal bell curve, is normal. Stuff starts slowly, and then sometimes accelerates and finishes. But we're in a block right now where new stuff comes on, and this block of stuff that's never gotten halfway persists. Now, I've kind of been talking to Stuart about this, waiting for the new format, because the format we have right now fails to identify the actual very first starting date. We'll have an amendment or change or rethinking dog bylaw, which is actually probably 2010 or something, and now we'll say it's new as of 2023 because we had a conversation. And a proper, if this Gantt chart or any proper tracking, you never change the original date and the original intention. You have a tracking line that doesn't change. And then you can add on that with an update as to what's different, what's not. But you always go back to the original date because that is the 5-minute or 3-minute manager, I guess, process. You need to understand what we've lost sight of. What you're supposed to do, what are we doing well, what are we not doing. And I don't feel our report allows us to capture where we started, how long it's been, so we make good decisions. Because I don't want to see them struck off the list necessarily. I just want an understanding of where we started and where we need to reprioritize. So it's odd that I didn't bring those charts with me. I kind of got tired of doing them.
Okay, well, okay. McFadden.
Thank you through the chair, to staff, I guess. How does this not just become another work item that doesn't get done in 6 years? So I say that kind of like jokingly, but what is the process from this table to make sure that we can do this efficiently within the next little bit so that we can maybe release some of that tension on staff's time if there are things here. So what is that process? So I agree with Director Graham. And I'm wondering from this table, what kind of direction do you need in order to make sure that we can move what she's asking to a quick, efficient time frame, and we're not having the same conversation in a year or 2 years from now?
Right. Through the chair, I think that it could start with me doing a run through, then working with the senior management team to see if what I see in the report is actually true with respect to potential stagnant projects. You know, one of the best ways to determine if a project could be taken off there is, has it not moved in quite a long time, and is anybody being vocal about it not moving for quite a long time? Because if everyone's being quiet and it's not moving, then obviously it's fallen off everybody's prioritization list. Usually if something's not moving, we'll hear from directors if they want it to move. So if things are on there from, you know, just quick scan 2017 and it's not moving, there's a reason for that. So that's the starting point. And then we go to the groups, and I think I'd like to clean this up before we start a new template, because I don't want to move items that you're not interested in moving forward into a template that's going to provide better information, and we're just going to populate that with information we could have removed.
Supplemental to the chair. So what do we need to make a decision to take off your plate so we have capacity and time to do that work? Because it seems like as staff, you don't have time to get to this. And so I'm wondering, is there something that is on your work plan that we can clearly say, okay, let's make sure Stuart and his team has capacity to do that? That's my concern, is that it seems like you're overloaded sometimes. And so, and you might not have an answer right now, but maybe that's something you need to be clear with us on. Is there something that you need from us to give you direction so that you have capacity and time? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, through the chair, I think I know what you're asking, and I think I have to think about it and go through the things on my plate. At the same time, I think what I'm worried about and why, you know, I'm talking with Mike about how quickly we can get that new program implemented is that the decision's been made to move on to something different, and the longer we stay with this one, it just becomes a lame duck, right? It's not something that has the interest of being populated in a meaningful way because we think, oh, we're going on and bringing something else on. And the longer that goes on, the less valuable this report is. And that's my bigger concern as well, is that we've got to try to find a way. And if we can reduce the projects in there, it's actually more beneficial to staff, because then when we're looking at updating the quarterly report, it's not about 67 projects in development services. Maybe it's half that, or even 2/3 of that. And it's a less of a monster to attack when you've got to do that. But in the end, I want to move away from this process we've got now, which is 2 weeks before the agenda publication, we're sending out emails saying, everybody update your stuff, and everyone's got to drop what they're doing. That's not the way it should work. This should be an iterative document that you're working on something, you make progress on it, you hit a milestone, you go in there, you update it. And it's something that's just there, part of your daily routine in terms of what you're doing with project work. So we're trying to get there. So right now, I don't have an answer to that first question.
I think the first thing we can do is go through it ourselves, and if there's anything that's specific, like not likely for City of Castlegar, but definitely the EA directors go through it. If there's something on there that you're like, oh, no, I'm good, you can take that off, that's the first step. The second one is there's something on there, again, that could be through a sub-service, sub-regional service or service committee, bring it there and say, hey guys, do we still want to do this? Some context I want to add is that in the 12 years I've been here, the amount of things that have been downloaded to local government in a quick scan was 4 major things within 4 years. And that stuff really, I saw that really delaying. I use planning as an example, which unfortunately our municipal directors don't get to participate in understanding how much we have at planning, but the cannabis regulations, the housing regulations, changes to the ALR, that all completely delayed any of our work on our official community plans, regular planning stuff. That's a significant component. I have 2 items. One of them is a resolution today that I've actually been in conversations with for over 5 years, but there was never a resolution for it. So there's also that complication where the hazard assessment on Johnson's Landing has been there since we had the original report done. And I had considered it an operational issue and kept talking about it every time we got the annual report, not realizing and being told later, we need a motion on the books for that. And I'm like, oh, so that's happening today despite the 5-year conversation. So our complexity and diversity as 20 directors that often are not able to regionalize our consideration until we get to this table, I think is kind of the elephant in the room around how this is populated and how little we might have consideration for everything else. I will say that at the beginning of this term, not this term, but this year, I wanted to see a moratorium on all new projects, all because of what we have to cover. Like, I'm just like, no, we're not doing anything new. We need to focus on what's here. Director Graham, thank you so much. I would love to see your analysis. I really appreciate that. But we're the ones that guide a lot of this short of what's delegated by other orders of government. And that's where I see us losing sight of the grander picture when we bring our issues here. I'm also the one that does that sometimes as a rural area that has so much to consider. So I think we all have to take responsibility for that. We're all interested in cleaning this up and making sure we have a work plan that is workable for our staff. But right now we have more to do than we have staff to do it. And we have a lot of things that are not discretionary. So I think my fellow colleagues at CSLAC the other day understood kind of where I was coming from with not wanting to increase grant or not to continue grants. I'm like, that's one thing that's super easy. It's discretionary. It wouldn't be on the work plan. It's just part of their process. But just, I think we all need to be carrying that perspective of, is this absolutely necessary or is this going to punt something that is absolutely necessary? I think we need to be more critical with each other on that. So, sorry, now we have a speakers list. Oh, cue it, okay. Just put your name on there because I won't all think you're pointing to somebody.
What I was gonna raise is there a prioritization matrix for staff? Because I heard it mentioned that if the director isn't being a squeaky wheel, it doesn't rise to the top. So is that gonna tell all the directors, well, I'm gonna look at this and I'm gonna be that squeaky wheel, then in some ways that is going to advance. Like if I had a list of items that I wanted addressed, if I'm bugging you enough, mine are gonna raise to the top and then to heck with everybody else. I think there's gotta be some mechanism and have it outlined that staff will look at. Priority is given to items that are mandated, items that are regional district wide, or items that are the oldest. So we know, is there a likelihood of these things ever getting addressed? Because obviously there are way too many things, like you said, for the staff capacity that we have. And there, I think, is a high likelihood that we wouldn't be adding staff just to go through and do all the items on the list. Some of them obviously very, very old and maybe not even valid. And I'm looking through and I've looked through and some of them are very similar. And we've just made, 1 year we've made a motion, but then, or one term, and then the next term we repeat it because the new directors do not know that we've already got a motion on the books that's being acted on.
Through the chair, I'm working on a prioritization matrix for the board. In terms of determining what projects you move forward and what priority you give them. When it comes to staff's priority, it really comes down to the order in which it was passed at the board, unless there's a timeline associated with the project that makes it more urgent. Grant applications, capital projects, RFP submissions, things like that. Obviously, there's some time sensitivity to some of those things. Things that aren't as time sensitive, they might fall down the list because there's other things that staff has to prioritize ahead of them. And we do look at the order they're passed in as well. Yeah.
I think the one clarification is that the squeaky wheel was more in reference to if there's one on there from 7 years ago and no one said anything about it, obviously it's not important. The squeaky wheel isn't that I'm now going to punt everybody else because I've been speaking louder. So I think that that's a clarification to be clear about, that it's generally the order it comes in, and then grants, regulated authorities being delegated, things like that are the things that punt it. But trust me, as loud as I've been, I'm still at the end of the list. So I say that cheeky. Okay. Newell and Maine, and then we need to move on. You can submit
I
further.
won't belabor it then. But looking at the 50 capital projects that started in basically in 2024, 50, and they're all on progress or done or whatever. So that's one category. Like, I just don't want to reinvent the wheel or throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I went to environmental services. Everything had an explanation moving along, most of them from the 20s, the odd from 17 or 18, but most of them are within the last 4 or 5 years, making progress, some of them very complex. So I just don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But, maybe a prioritizing process or whatever. But myself, I don't have a huge problem with this corporate report. I like it. I think it's valuable, and it shows like it's updated. We're making progress on it, slow but sure, and it's a few more % than it was 4 months ago. But we should take a look and see if some of them should be thrown away, like support on cannabis or whatever from 2021. Maybe it should go, but by and large, I actually think it's good, and I think we're making tremendous progress. And I think it's good to look at. One more thing.
Yeah.
When we say, hey, let's do something else, I think we should look at this
Yes.
and say, as you were saying, well, let's not do this or replace this with this, or else realize it's a couple of years down the road. Anyway, I won't rant on. Thank you. Any more? I have already.
Maine for the final, we're going to move on.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Chair Watson, in response to when you made your statement and you referenced that CSLAC had agreed to suspend grant funding, that was for 1 year only. And so I just want it to be really accurate so that we don't get someone next year saying, but it's just for 1 year.
It's just for 1 year. Yeah. Okay, so staff have taken notes. We'll come back to that. Thank you, Director Graham. I did see that come in. Discretionary grants. Would anyone like to move this motion?
So,
Thank you. Do we have a preference? Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Mike. See ya. Discretionary, this looks like, thank you. Second, thank you. This is 5.5.1.2. Discussion. You guys are good? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And community development. Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, Chair and CAO reports. Said a few things, and I'll try and do this and remember this a little better, but when I've been directed or staff have been directed and I sign it to create a briefing note or a letter on behalf of the board, I realized that we weren't always then circulating to you those final letters. So you will see attached to this section our input on the community, the wildfire program we were referencing earlier pop off, as well as the community works briefing note. So on the first item, I'll let you know that we did meet with Minister Anderson. Stuart and Dan attended as well as her staff. And she was very appreciative of the context. She was not a part of creating that program, but between what we gleaned from the community groups that have been successful, what we've heard from BC Wildfire Service, and other entities that she understood where we were coming from. They're interested to see if there are other ways of making this work and asked us specifically on that. And I believe our response was simply like the way it worked this year worked very well, perhaps providing direct funding for training where we're not involved in vetting that training would be a step forward. Other notes from that?
No.
Okay. And then on the community works one, so several of us were at the electoral area forum, and this is where this briefing note was sent to, as well as the ministry, to talk about the changes to the community works funding. They did a presentation. Sorry, David, please don't put stuff in chat that's discussion based. I don't know what you're referencing, so I'll just flag you to come back to you. Thank you. Thank you, Director David, that works. So with the community works conversation at the EA forum, I was able to reference our briefing note. They had it. I think in terms of moving forward, trying to remember the points we raised specifically, because during the presentation, they identified what was still eligible and what was still working. And it was, from my perspective, a little more feasible than what we had originally heard. And it was the same percentage we had at Rural Affairs. So it went pretty good. I was actually able to confirm eligibility for a project that we originally declined on. So that was really good. But that's there for your information. And then I have a couple of other notes. At executive this month, there were 2 delegation requests that were redirected. And this is something I thought of afterwards, sorry, executive and to admin. When we decline a delegation, I have to let you know and give you a reason why. Because what we did is we redirected them to sub-regional committees or to staff. I did not let you know. One of them was specific, I believe, to Nelson E&F and looking at some economic development stuff. So I believe we redirected them that way. Another one was looking for a right-of-way approval, which would be through Modi and our parks process. So we did not accept them as a delegation. We just said, please talk to staff. And just that, am I remembering correctly on those? Yeah. Thank you. And when we do that, Ange communicates to them because she's the one that receives the delegation request. This is what we're suggesting to you. So they're not necessarily a decline. You can work it this way. Those were considered quite operational, so there was no need to come to the board. Vice Chair, was there anything else we did this month that I'm forgetting about? No. Okay. So I'm going to go to Davidoff, and then you've got Graham. Go ahead, Director Davidoff.
That letter that was there, that was January 28th. Like, are we sending a new letter, or was this letter already sent?
It was already sent. This is for your FYI.
Okay. So just there was a typo in it, or a word missing. That's okay. That's all I was noting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Director Grant.
Thank you. So just a question for the chair,
Mm-hmm.
which is the chair sent a couple letters last month regarding the ferries to the province, and I was wondering if the chair received any acknowledgement or response to either one of those letters.
I did not. I did go through, just to back up for a sec procedurally, we've noted that sometimes I'll get something, but staff aren't copied. And so I go through my email at agenda prep and post to make sure if I missed anything that should be on correspondence. If we had, it would have been on our agenda received. But we're also noting to admin staff at the front that if they get something, don't just send it to me, send it to these guys as well, because sometimes it can end up in my junk file, just multiple people. So as far as I know, we've received no response from those letters. I should have also included them as part of the attachments. I know I forwarded them to you and Director Davidoff, but that's something I'm going to try and catch more again. Write a letter as chair when it's written, as long as the person receiving it has received it, I would then put it on the agenda so that everybody has it. And Ange and Stuart, you didn't see any responses from those ferry letters? Okay. Vandenberg, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh, you were waving at somebody. Okay. Yeah, probably. Just leave it there. Okay, any other questions for me at this time? All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, on to Rural Affairs, Director Jackman.
Okay, So yesterday morning, we have from yesterday morning meeting, we have 6 recommendations that are on the agenda today. The committee received delegations for items 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5 for land use applications. And I will block a few. First one, zone recommendation arising from item 7.1, cancellation building bylaw contravention, Pearson area H. Although the corporate officer be authorized to remove the NOD relating to the property as described.
You second that, Papa?
Yes.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I'd like to move the next 3 in the block. They are all development variance permits. There's 7.3 was Koziansik and Cole area I, 7.4 was Benson Boyle and area J. Number 7.5 was Sergey Pierce area A. They're all recommendations to approve the issuance of the development variance permit as described on the agenda for each item. All vote and move as a block.
We have a second. Thank you, Lockwood. Does anyone want to pull any of those? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Last 2 are community works funding applications. Item 9.1 is East Shore Connectivity Fiber Optic. 8, the second on 9.2 is community works fund down Creston Ed Center. I moved them as a block with the amounts and description as stated in the agenda.
We have a second. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And sorry, you did those as a block, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, director's motions. First one is my motion. This is, I'll just give you a bit of background on this. This is one where when Johnson's Landing slide occurred in 2012, within, I believe, a year or 2, we had a geotech assessment done, or the province did, to assess the hazard that remains. There is a hazard that remains, about 800,000 cubic meters of material at the top of Johnson's Landing. Based on that geotech assessment, we were informed and did apply what's called a high hazard zone to the area. And Ministry of Forest has done annual monitoring with specific points where they monitor it both on what they call the scarp and then at the bottom, because part of the slide was actually a groundwater saturation that occurred as well as movement from the top. So Ministry of Forest has been doing a monitoring program every year. They send us an annual report at the end to say no movement, little movement, what was it? When I first initiated a planning conversation, I was including this in that because that has taken some time, and this high hazard zone actually has quite an impact on the community from a servicing perspective. Like Canada Post no longer crosses the line. Plowing can sometimes be difficult from a WorkSafe BC perspective. Building, you need a geotech, which is going to be regular anyways because of the location. But there was definitely impacts to the community that have occurred. So this is one where I went through all of my communications, and it was significant, more than the Sandon ones. About 4 or 5 years of communications, and what occurred is I never had a motion on the books to say that this needs to occur, but I've had money set aside for 3 years to do this. So all of that to say that while this would be new from a motion perspective, the issue is not new, nor is the request to do this new. The other thing regarding it is that even though this motion indicates a specific process, staff is going to work with the province. There's actually a geotech that works in the area, another former geotech that worked on this. They're going to work together to figure out the best way to do this. So this may not be the way it lays out, but any funding required, I have committed to all along. So that's it. I'm going to move the motion. Thank you. Discussion. Newell.
I just wonder how the amount fits into this. Since it's not mentioned, I just was curious.
The amount, well, that's part of where I've had $10,000 set aside, which was the original guesstimate, which was probably 4 years ago. And that was when I was taking a different approach, which was, could we do this through NDMP work? So currently there is no number. I have 10,000 set aside. I've just committed to whatever this costs, I will cover it because I don't actually have a service that would do this.
If it's not needed and it's good enough for staff,
Okay.
That's great.
Further discussion. You good with all that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Director Graham, you're good. Okay. Director Newell?
Thanks. Can I move the motion and then speak to it briefly? So the motion's there, I'll move it. And it's a slight change to the public time description in our procedure bylaw. I think even today I was kind of struck at the challenge. So we get emails, we get phone calls, we hear from constituents and interested people that live within our area. And this would be an opportunity to not only have them say, hey, why are you doing that? But to say, hey, why don't you do this? So I think limiting the public time to questions, as I mentioned to you, is perhaps doing a disservice to the public. I think, why don't we want to hear from them? So 2 minutes to tell us what you think. So I would like to, I'm offering the opportunity for us to consider opening up the public time to more than just questions.
Thank you.
So that's the reason that I thought I'd bring this forward for us to consider and put on the list as we review things that could eventually get put into our procedure bylaw.
So a couple notes. I just want to note that the procedure bylaw and opening it up is quite a process. So
Yes.
we would assume that this would be banked as the next time we do the procedure
when it's
bylaw.
opened up.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
But if the chair were to be flexible during things.
Well, I was
No,
gonna
I
indicate
didn't say that.
that is how I've approached
I know.
it, and I would continue to do that. So with all that, I am gonna start giving us some time reminders. We have 2 very big items we still have to attend to. So in your discussion, please be brief and note that this will come back to us when we do the procedure bylaw again, okay? So who's on the list? We've got Jackman, Popoff, Vandenberg.
Thank you. In terms of receiving or listening to public statements, there's absolutely no limit today to talk to any and all of us. We get it all the time. I'm concerned that being at board level, it may create a grandstanding opportunity, which will deflect from our critical core work. And we talk about core work quite a bit. So I think the public understands, they want to talk to me, talk to whoever, do that. We will bring what we need to bring to the board. However, I do agree if Director Newell wants this to be a sort of a holding position for the next official or scheduled review, absolutely, let's talk about it in more detail.
Thank you. Popoff.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment on that. We only allow 15 minutes. So to go in line with what Director Newell recommended, should we consider expanding it to maybe a half an hour? Because if we listen to comments and then there's no room for questions or responses, or are we limited to how much time we can allow for?
So by all means. Oh, Ange, go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, one of the amendments we did make to the procedure bylaw was the opportunity to extend public time to 30 minutes at the discretion of the chair if we needed to. So we still have the 11:45 as our allocated time to keep that consistent with our previous practices, but the chair can extend that time if needed.
Got my answer.
Great. Vandenberg.
Wait.
Thanks. Hewitt.
Thank you, through the chair. My only concern with this is, could this be used as a mechanism to circumvent the normal system of getting an item on the agenda? To me, it's sort of akin to us trolling Facebook to try and find agenda items. We've got enough business on our plate without using public time as a way for the public to introduce agenda items for our consideration. If there's concerns with something that we're doing, that's fine, but not to introduce a new item for our consideration. That should go through the proper process that everyone would have to go through. And as Director Jackman indicated, you know, the directors are always able to be approached. And if it is a compelling enough case that is being made, then that director can bring that agenda item to the table.
Thank you. Procedurally, no one could introduce a new agenda item through public time. They would have to go through the regular process regardless. Go ahead.
No, through the chair, my only comment on this is I think that the board is already extraordinarily accommodating when it comes to that. It's not, you don't stick to ask a question. You do allow the public to speak and provide comment already. I think that the only time it ever gets limited is when perhaps there's a member of the public who isn't being as respectful as we would expect them to be in this environment. Other than that, I think you're very accommodating. So personally, I'm not sure it's necessary. I think that the current bylaw allows certain controls for the chair to be able to limit things when needed, as opposed to it being a 2-minute opportunity for anyone to provide comment.
But we, again, when this comes back, we'll get to repeat the conversation and anything, because we did just adopt our new procedures bylaw. So this would be down the road. And at that time, we might have new considerations based on public time for the next year. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. To the members of the public, we have vehicles parked on the road over here and the laneway, and they need to be moved because you will be towed by our neighbors if not. Thank you so much. Feel free to park in the parking lot or across the street. Thank you. I'm sorry?
Or don't get towed.
Or don't get towed. Freedom. We have freedom. Okay, 7.3 is completed. 7.4, before we go to Director Davidoff, for this motion, I do want, Stuart was able to communicate with our legal team on this item, so he has some updates for us.
Yeah, to the chair. I think that an issue like this is always interesting because you have a delegation that comes forward and they're presenting their case, and of course they're promoting their case, so it's going to be a one-sided conversation. And because staff's not directed to go back and prepare a report that comes back and provides you with the pro cons and moving ahead with something, sometimes you don't hear that side of things. So I want to make sure that the board, you've heard all of the reasons why this motion should go forward, and I wanted to get some ideas on what are some of the risks that you face by doing so. So in conversation with some of our legal counsel, a couple of things came up. One of the concerns that was raised was, is this in the purview or the mandate of the regional district, through legislation? And really, when it comes down to it, anything that the board feels impacts their residents or their residents are concerned about would ultimately be part of your mandate. So if the board truly felt that this initiative is something that your residents are concerned with and you need to deal with on behalf of your residents, by all means, it would be considered part of your mandate. So that isn't so much of a concern, or as much of a concern as I thought at the beginning. The second piece that I wanted to get some information on was there was a concern brought up by director in conversation. What's the risk of perhaps a retaliatory lawsuit? Should there be, if the case doesn't go forward, or if it fails, us being potentially named in the class, there could be a risk of a slap lawsuit coming back for defamation if something like this fails. So that definitely is a risk going forward, depending on what happens with the file. I also received some wording around, what does a motion look like in terms of participating in something like this? And really, at this point, the way the motion is written, it's not joining the lawsuit. Really, at this point, what the first step is you got to find a representative plaintiff. So you've got to find someone who's going to lead the class to say that specific oil company or specific producer has caused me harm, and I can point exactly to the cost associated with it. And that representative plaintiff has to come forward. Now, obviously, that local government, municipality, regional district, wherever it end up being, they're going to have to incur costs because they're the ones doing the work to prove that case on behalf of the class. So after that representative plaintiff is identified, the regional district could join the class. So I think that there, should the motion pass, there should be some wording around joining the class versus supporting it should a representative plaintiff be identified. Other than that, I think that summarizes what I wanted to talk about. Sorry, I'm just going on other notes here. Nope, that's pretty much the summary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Director Davidoff, this is your motion. I assume you're there, your screen's covered, but are you there? You're
Right.
unmuted.
My screen's covered, Chair. I think you should see me. Oh,
No,
that's,
we don't.
it's my piece of paper. Sorry about that. Yes, my screen, my camera is covered. So I've just got my speaking notes here. So that's why. Is that okay?
Oh, it is. I just wanted to make sure you were there and you had heard
I'm
what director. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and I thank the CEO for addressing those points. So what I'd like to do is move the motion, and I think you've all had opportunity to read it because we're getting a lot of feedback on it. And secondly, if there's a seconder, then I would like to open.
Is there a second to the motion? Page, and it is seconded. It's on the floor, and we are going to use a timer just based on what we have left for the day and what we have to cover. So go ahead, and I'll let you know when you're close to 2.
Thank you. The reason this motion is here is because we passed a motion when we're doing our climate action work to say that our ratepayers shouldn't be paying for damage caused by super polluters. And that was included in that motion. So this motion is a follow-up that we should be looking to recover damages from the polluters, from the super polluters in particular. And basically that's why this motion is here. And I made that motion when we did our climate action work and making this motion here to save our ratepayers money, not to tax them more for all the things that we keep getting downloaded and paying for. So just a couple of notes. Basically, there have been comments about, what this money's for. This is aimed at legal funds to get the lawsuit certified. And the timeline for certification can be several years. And Stuart was right when he said that, you need a plaintiff, and then we look at joining. So a friendly amendment to the motion, whatever works, I would easily entertain. The RDCK declared a climate action imperative in 2019. Local governments are uniquely positioned to be able to join these actions, whereas provinces may be bound by existing contracts and legal obligations. Another benefit of local government participating in this is that local governments are protected from paying defendants legal fees via the Class Proceeding Act. And another reason is that, yes, we do get support for climate-related costs from provincial governments, but I think we heard some questions today in question period about the indirect climate costs that we end up paying for through taxation through our diverse services, and there's a long list of those being developed. I emailed all of.
You're at 2 minutes, just because I can't show you on the screen.
Okay, I emailed all of you key reasons for local governments to sue super polluters and potential outcomes, and there's a list there of 10. Chair, do you want me to go through those so they're on the record?
No,
just the headings. That's all I would do, or will that?
You're out of time, but we'll come back to you for the end. Why don't we go through the speakers and then we can have you close?
Chair,
everybody got your email.
Okay, so I think the heads are there. They're pretty clear. The other one is, do super polluters have insurance or contingency funds to pay for the damages they cause? I also sent that out to all of the directors. Yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, in some jurisdiction, they have to have liability trust funds and things like that to pay for damages. So this is something they're well aware of and they have paid for in many cases. So basically, there's a lot of material here. I don't know how the chair wants to do this. I got my 2 minutes, and I guess I have to stop. So I urge you to debate this and discuss it and support it for the reasons stated that I stated verbally and emailed all of you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director David. I'll come back to you for the close as usual.
Thank you.
We're at 4 minutes now, and I'm just being cognizant. We have big items we still have to deal with, so I'm now on the crunch, and I apologize. Speakers list. Jackman, go ahead. Is this the list here? Okay.
Sure, thanks. I'd like to do this in two parts. The first one is this states that we will join a class action lawsuit. And to me, that the only way we get any money is if we join it anyway. So the CAO, that is where there could be jeopardy if we join. That's what this says.
Yes, through the chair, if I had the liberty to rewrite this now after talking with certain people the last couple of days, I'd say support the development of a class action lawsuit and join it subject to a representative plaintiff being identified, something along those lines.
I would choose that as the
Director
primary.
David Off?
Oh, sorry.
Please, can you mute and respect process, please?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Are you going to move an amendment or are you going to keep speaking? Go ahead.
I want to speak a little bit.
Yeah,
as
go
to
ahead.
Part of why I want to be cautious. So yeah, I was thinking we could have a motion to support the fund. And then if we did, I think we'd also have to believe even further because we can't support the fund and have an expectation of being paid by that result unless we join it. So I think there's a jeopardy there that we have to be very specific. Here's a donation. And the reasons I have concerns, and it's a fashion thing in the States, and don't say it can't happen in Canada, a slap lawsuit. So that's a strategic lawsuit against public participation, isn't meant to win anything. It's meant for a corporation with a lot of money to drop $1 million on the table if they want, and to drag our staff and whoever through a 2-year process, because they could easily state, making this up, that they are a corporation operating within existing laws with related regulations to produce corporate revenue. And we are interfering with that regulatory process and the business operations while we have collectively benefited from their corporate operations through energy to our industry, for our personal use, etc. It doesn't matter what they do as a counter lawsuit. It'll be something along that line, and our staff will be 2 years defending, maybe longer. That is the entitlement of every one of these corporations. So I cannot see us joining anything and opening us to that jeopardy. I cannot see us expecting, like it or not, money back necessarily. The province and the federal government need to do that hard, heavy lifting work. Yeah, we can do it.
Thank you. Do you want to hold off for?
I will hold off. I agree.
We'll do the discussion. Okay, thank you. Lockwood.
Thank you. I'm going to speak against this and I'm going to give some of my reasons. I'm not sure any person actually walked to this meeting today. We all drove a vehicle that was made with gas and oil, so we're a bunch of hypocrites in the first place. Second of all, my email, I was apologized to somebody that didn't put my name on an email list, and I thanked them for not putting my name on. They ended up putting on. I got 211 emails, and not all of them were for, and not all of them were against. We have 6,500 residents, and I've gone through and I've counted the emails. I think I've only received 300 and some out of the 65,000 residents. So I'm not in a position to say, yes, I'm going to take $1 from every single resident. I think that if residents want to donate, as the CAO has indicated is our best is to support, if we wanted to do that, that they can support. If they have one person in their house, they can give $1, or if they have 10 people in their house, or they can give $500 themselves. So I'm going to speak against it at this point.
Thank you. So we have Maine McLaren Co. page so far. Maine, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. Even though I personally lean towards holding accountable the corporations as a director, I have to say that absent senior orders of government doing the work that they should be doing to collect and corral the super polluters, to levy fees and taxes on the super polluters rather than giving them tax breaks. I think that it's not time for local government to do this type of action in a vacuum from the when the two senior orders of government that should be doing something aren't. So, I will not support this at this time.
Thank you. Yeah, you get to speak.
Thanks, Chair. I'm trying to approach this open-mindedly. And I'm much like Director Main said, I understand the rationale behind this initiative. And to Director Lockwood's point, I drove here in an EV on Sunshine that I've driven for 5 years. Have solar panels. I'm trying to do the things and believe in all the energy efficiency and the fact that we need to switch to get away from fossil fuels, but I have some pretty serious concerns about where this would end up. People with power and money tend to keep their power and money. So if we join this, if this lawsuit is successful, who's going to bear the cost of that? And I think that's going to be the people that I know that are single parents that have to drive into town to go to work, and gasoline prices will rise. So I'm trying to be open to what the other side of this is, but I worry that the effect of this will not reduce the consumption of fossil fuels and will hurt the people who can afford it the least. So I'm not for or against, but I have some real trouble with the motion as it is.
Thank you. Paige.
I support the supporting of and the removal of the and further. I believe this is an all orders of government effort. I think, well, we are waiting for regulation globally, federally, provincially, that really captures the external costs of the emissions that we're currently experiencing and the runaway effects that are now being triggered. For the most vulnerable financially in our communities, the money we spend today is very significantly savings that communities and local government and families will be saving in the future in terms of responding to these disasters. I think our perspective as local government means we see costs and impacts in our asset management and how we have to retrofit things to prepare for new heat and cooling days that we see, and the destruction of infrastructure and the strengthening and overbuilding that we have to add to infrastructure now to make it last even close to what it used to. So at this stage, I think the question does need to be asked from a civil level and needs to be tested in court in terms of the misinformation. I think that's part of the wind that everyone is fighting is corporate power is being spent so that other orders of government and us ourselves are being fed information of the lack of urgency, and we're being held in kind of a stasis position, and we need to be moving to action, even if it's not perfect action. So I would support moving this along and support $1 a person going towards exploring this question from this angle and doing all the diligence as we can to protect ourselves from retaliatory action. But I think just because we may be confronted by parties who wish to hold on to their power and money, that it doesn't mean we should be challenging the principles by which we are damaging the future. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Director Lund.
Sure, yeah, I wanted to speak up on behalf of the Village of Spokane. We've already resolved to join the Sue Big Oil campaign. And really, this is about advocating for corporate responsibility and responsibility of the super polluters. It's an opportunity to raise the issue to other orders of the government as well. It's an opportunity to take a leadership role as local government. However, the heavy lifting is not being done by local government. We would be contributing towards the costs associated with moving it forward. So I'm in support of the regional district voting in favor of this motion. The other piece at this table, I've also heard from the public as we were moving through the climate action work. There were a number from a wide scope of the community who said, hey, as taxpayers, I feel like it's not fair that we're doing the heavy lifting of dealing with the effects of climate change. So yeah, and there was an ask from the public through that process that we look for polluter pay options, and this is a potential to move that forward. So it's about corporate accountability. There's a lot of innovation that can come through corporations as well. So I don't think that necessarily that there'll be a direct consumer cost. There's significant profits with the oil companies as well. So yes, supporting this motion.
Director Grant.
Thank you. So through the chair, I struggle with this one. I see both sides to it. So I put this out to my newsletter for Area E, and I had a very strong majority with a very clear direction to me to not support this, primarily for the reasons that they wanted local government to focus on local issues. They really saw this as a benefit for just lawyers to make money for themselves. And they would rather see us working collaboratively as opposed to with the big oil companies that we still need for our daily lives. They would rather see us work on a collaborative basis with demand side management programs and others, and not go at this at a very aggressive court action. So that was what I heard from Area E residents. There was a minor support for it, but by and large it was not to do it. So I'll be voting against that for those reasons.
Thank you. Dr. Newell.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Director Davidoff, for bringing this forward, and thanks to all the emails and the perspectives. Very interesting and complex issue. And I drove up today, but I dropped my car off for an oil change, so I walked part of the way. And it is a serious issue.
Sorry.
No, I started it and then I realized it is serious. And what happened today for me as we talked about essential services is I realized again that I really feel a challenge when I'm not in an area that is our lane, like subdivisions and septic fields and what have you. And even though our lane is supporting our people in whatever way we see fit, I'm just uncertain that joining, partnering with this action is the best service for our people. And I myself am certainly not nearly qualified enough to know if really I should do it and it is the right thing. So I agree with Director Main, who's been part of FCM for years, that I think it might be best to start at a different order of government. It's a taxation issue. This issue could be dealt with at a federal level through different taxation policies. We could pay $5 a liter for gas and use the profit of $3 a liter or $4 a liter to fund mitigation things. I was saying this as I was commuting to Salmo in the 90s, that just do what they do in Denmark and charge $5 a liter and then use the money to fund mitigation and such processes. So I think our venue is not the right place for this to move forward, and I am not qualified enough to know that it is the right thing. So for those reasons, I will be not supporting the resolution.
Thank you. I'm trying to go last before David. Pop off. Oh, sorry, I wrote a V instead of your full name. Sorry, go ahead.
Myself?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
Vandenberg,
thank you through the chair.
please.
As a director for RDC, I absolutely oppose local government participating in the destruction of an industry that has repercussions on so many of our daily lives. This discriminates against the thousands of people who are employed in these industries. I feel local government should not be involved in activism, but rather focus on doing what it does in terms of collecting taxation to be proactively pursuing environmental stewardship. The province and the federal government already have policies in play that directly affect citizen energy poverty. 30% of RDCK residents already live in energy policy. I worry about class action, a class action that will do up energy prices, including economic development within the RD. What entrepreneur would want to start a business in a jurisdiction who chooses activism over doing a good job of our primary mandates? Activism and ideology is not a mandate of local government, in my view. When you consider pollution from manufacturing of green, which I'll call around technology perspective, I would argue that there is more planet destruction from those industries when considering cradle to grave impacts. And I'm also aware of a corporation who has stated that they will systematically engage in legislation with any municipality if RDCK is to support this measure. Once again, I will not be supporting this. I think it's too risky.
Thank you, Director Vandenberg. Papa?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director David, for introducing this resolution. As a rural director, I had many emails pro and con, and I looked at it, and every one of them had a good reason whether to support it or not to support it. And when we had that presentation done here at the regional district table, and one of the presenters is a lawyer from Area H, and we had her at one of our meetings on about the wildfires, stuff like that. So I'm in a quandary of this. So I have to go back to what Director Main said. We have different orders of government. They can pass legislation for pollution, etc. They have that ability. We don't. And then I go back to looking at, we're not a municipality, we're a regional district. The regional districts were formed in 1965. And our mandate was to provide basic services to our residents that municipalities are providing to theirs. And over the last couple of years, we have expanded our mandate to include different areas of involvement. And as mentioned by the chair, we're overloaded as it is without going into taking on further tasks and asking our residents to contribute $1 with not a big amount. But it is $60,000. That money can be used for our mandated services that we were mandated to basically provide to our residents. So we are deviating from what we're supposed to do. And I struggle whether I'm going to support this or not. And at this point, listening to all the discussion that was here, I would not support this. And for the reason being that it falls outside our mandate. We're getting involved into other politics that maybe we should not be involved in. We can lobby our provincial government and our federal government individually if we so choose. But as a regional district, I go back to why we were created. Thank you.
Thank you. Director David, can I ask you to mute until we call on you for the close?
Oh.
Thank you. I'm just making sure. So there's no one else on the list right now, so I will speak. A couple notes, Community Works Fund is considered gas tax that we use for asset management, which is a tax on gas that we turn around and we get to use with the required criteria of long-term management with the inclusion of sustainability within that. That's part of the criteria of that fund. So just to note that that is something that does currently occur. Advocacy is definitely a large part of what we do. I spent over a decade advocating for regionalization of food systems, not our lane. We advocate for ferries, we advocate, so I'm wanting to differentiate the difference between activism and advocate, because as a rural director, I spend a ton of my time advocating for representation of my communities. That's a broad topic, but it's definitely never limited to our services. If it was, I could have 5 other jobs and doing a ton of other things. So advocacy is a big part of what we do. However, I do have concerns with this approach. The 2 concerns I have, number 1 is the federal government and the provincial government subsidize and encourage the very industry that we're looking to sue through this process. And to me, the taxpayer is the taxpayer with one pocket. So we would be taking taxes to go against what is actually being subsidized at other orders of government. That for me, number one, is a fundamental issue because the taxpayer is paying for both aspects. The second part to that is I do have a very difficult time with using taxation, especially in a regional district where we are very limited to being service driven with a tangible ability to say that 52 cents on your 1,000 assessment is for the water system, it's for the fire service. Using taxation through local government for this, I cannot support whatsoever. I have fundamental issues with that. I don't debate the fact that there's impacts to our environment, and I don't want us to go down the road of pretending to be scientists because we're not, but for the 40 plus years I've been alive, I did a lot of work in environmental and food systems. I don't debate that. I stopped debating that a long time ago. That is true. But when it comes to the actual emergency costs, we also don't pay for those. Those are all refunded by the province, as is most of our major funding for our emergency and climate change programs. LGCAP, that is all through polluter pay funding. CRI, Community Resiliency Investment Fund for Fire Smart, that is all funded by the province. So most of our mitigation work is also funded by the province. Those are not direct costs to our taxpayers through local government. They are through taxation at the provincial level. So while I don't disagree with the need to address the impacts to our environment, I do disagree with the process we're looking at taking. And I could not support taking $1 from people who are not voluntarily signing up to be a part of a lawsuit. That should be a voluntary choice. So for those reasons, I can't support the motion as it is currently written. And I was trying to be last, minus David off for the close. Weatherhead, by all means, go ahead.
I just had a question, and it's interesting how it's saying $1 per regional district resident as opposed to $1 per regional district residents. And is that intentional to say every baby and child? Okay.
David off for the close.
Thank you, Chair. Very good debate. Again, as I stated when I opened on this motion, the point of this resolution, and again, I agree with what CAO Horn said, it could be tweaked, but I think the ship has sailed on that because it's pretty clear there isn't support for this. The reasons are to save our taxpayers money. My constituents, and I have over 100 water systems in Area I, are tired of receiving letters from the province saying, conserve your water because of drought. We have municipalities like Nelson who have a surface water system on drought alerts. I work as a teacher in School District 20, and our kids are choking on wildfire smoke. All of this, these are the reasons. Saving our ratepayers money, looking after the public health of our kids. When the lawsuits against big tobacco started, the same arguments were made. And it's time we did something for future generations and our ratepayers, and not be timid about looking to who should pay. And it's consistent with the motion we passed when we passed our climate action plan. So I see where this is going. With respect to it, it's not in our lane. Local governments face increased costs from climate change, and elected officials have a fiduciary duty and fiscal responsibility to our ratepayers to minimize those costs. And we're not doing that by not looking at things like this. I would respectfully suggest that the CAO make the amendments to this motion, removing the and further and the wording, and circulating that to all of us. If there's someone that would move that, I don't know, I guess I can't, can I move an amendment of my own motion through the chair?
I would consider it friendly if you did.
Okay, so then asking the chair, asking the CAO through the chair, can you please circulate the amended wording that would legal feels more comfortable with? And then
Director Davidoff, we do not have that ready to roll. That's not something staff prepared, and that needs to come from a director, and it needs to be written out. So if you want to do that for next month, we could do that. If you have a simple amendment you want to propose right now, I can't ask the CAO to start including stuff without time to process that.
No, basically there's 4 words that need to be added and then further removed. Could the CAO help me with that?
Not in this process. Write it out, put it in an email. He can figure it out that way.
Okay, I don't have the CAO wording, and the CAO didn't speak to me before just now. I was surprised that we got that report.
Because we got it 10 minutes ago. So by all means, the motion on the floor right now, we can either just finish this process and you can work on a separate one. You can propose an amendment right now. The CAO rewording it for you in this moment is not functional.
I am prepared to make the amendment, but the key thing is that could the CAO there's 3 words that need to be added in the first line, and the and further needs to be removed. What are the 3 words?
I don't think he has that.
Could the CAO please respond?
So
He's working on it.
Through the chair, the motion that I developed is not similar to what's on the page right now. It would be a significant change.
It is not the CEO's job
It's
to
not.
put our recommendations before the board. I appreciate his advice, his counsel,
Yeah.
that he's brought forward. It's not his job to try and craft our motions.
So Director Davidoff, I cannot ask the CEO to write your motion. He can certainly support you, but you need to finish this motion. And then you can come back with a different one next month.
Can we table this to a later time in the meeting, Chair, to allow me to craft the amendment?
No, I'd recommend that you either defeat this or let it pass, see where it goes, and then go from there. You can refer it to next month as well.
Okay,
we have a lot to cover in this meeting and 2 hours left, so I need to be cognizant.
I would make a motion to refer this to our next meeting to allow this work to get done.
On referral, are you seconding?
Yeah. No.
No. You can speak to the proprietary referral, not the details. And direction of staff. Go ahead, Paige.
What I heard is new information that come forward during this meeting. So the motion needs a chance to be reshaped. So prior for audience appropriate to refer to the next one.
Okay, on referral.
This is a process of trying to get something through because they know it's not gonna happen. We're never gonna stop this. It's just.
You can vote against referral. We don't get into the details other than direction of staff at this time. So the motion is to refer. All those in favor to refer this till next month. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, you can't vote. Sorry. You're counting. I get it. Motion to refer fails, so we can take the vote on this one.
Could you call opposed because we have a default position? If you don't vote, please call opposed.
Opposed to referral. 1,
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Motion fails for referral. Back to the main motion. All those in favor? 1, 2. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Motion fails. Thank you very much. You're welcome to work with CAO on a different motion based on discussion for next month, Director Davidoff.
Thank you, Chair. I will do so. Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Well, don't leave. You still got work to do. But take care.
I'm still here.
Okay, good. Okay, folks, I'm gonna recommend that we do the consent agenda and then we break at 2:30 as per usual. Anyone need to pull anything from the consent agenda to edit or discuss?
Chair? No. Is this the first month we've done this? Second month?
Third.
What month are we? We did it in December too, eh? We worded it this way. Thanks anyway, it's awesome.
Okay, so we're not pulling anything, we're good on the consent agenda?
Just for clarity, is it all the eights? that we're
Yes, it's
considering?
all the way up to
Just the
8.2.
eights.
So all of 8.1,
Okay, to 8.1.
and then if nothing's being pulled, Ange?
So through the chair, all of them, 8.1, 8.2,
All the eights.
8.3, 8.4.
Oh,
8.1 through 8.4 is the consent agenda.
well, 8.4 is director's reports,
Correct.
so we stop there.
Well, those are for receipt. Those are for the written reports.
Okay, sorry, so I'm sorry, my apologies, it is all of the eights. So do you wanna pull, I'm gonna start with the first section of 8.1, does anything need to be pulled on minutes? Seeing none?
Yep.
Oh, yep,
Preston Valley, 8.1.12.
okay, before you continue, is there any other minutes that need to be pulled? 8.1.2 is CSLAC.
8.1.12.
0.12, Preston Valley, okay, go ahead, you're the only one, by all means, what would you like? Denver.
Yes, on 9.1 in the minutes, the second bullet is not correct. It's not, including a reduction of 25% on how it would impact, it's not to the staff. It is, an offering to that present presenter to provide us with that information. I don't believe it reads that way. It's a staff direction, it's not a staff direction. It was the presenter.
Ange?
So through the chair, at the next Creston Valley Services Committee, when the committee is receiving the minutes, that item can be addressed there. And then the minutes can be provided again with that next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Ash.
Stuart?
Yeah, through the chair, just to ensure Director Vandenberg, the director of the library is very well aware of her responsibility to come back with that information. It's not staff's responsibility.
It sounded like.
Yeah,
it was
no,
staff direction.
through the chair, I understand how it might read, but just to make sure your comfort, Joe and Sarah are working together on that. Yeah, she understands her responsibility.
Thank you.
Okay. Next section, 8.2 for information. Are there any communications you would like to pull? If so, which number? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. 8.2.4, I'll just let you know as the chair, I let them know twice that we would not meet their deadline for response on Canada Post, but as directors, you can always send letters outside of our timeline. 8.3, accounts tables, Director Graham.
Just one question through the chair is why are we paying $119,000 to the regional district of Central Okanagan?
Through the chair, that's for a 911 econ contract.
Okay, anything else on those ones? Okay. 8.4, it is verbal reports this month. I'm going to recommend we move that to post in camera to see how much time we have left. Thank you, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Remind me of that advice. Okay, that's right. We have a late AKBLG motion submitted by Vandenberg. Could we do that after in camera?
Enthusiasm there.
Sorry. Oh, Tom
You read the
Carey,
room
I'm
well.
so sorry.
Sorry about that.
I asked Aiden to circulate it to you and Stuart, or you and Angela.
It's not to Angela, it's to Stuart.
I'm sorry, Director Vandenberg. I get pressured at this point in the day. So can we please, could we place that at the, like in director's reports or something? Or director's motions, we've already done. Where do I do that? Can we even do that? Go ahead.
So through the chair, it would be a recommendation to add a late item, an AKBLG resolution, given 2/3 of the directors would have to vote to move forward with that recommendation.
Okay. So that's the process because we've already gone past this part of the agenda. We need 2/3 vote to add a late item to the agenda. The agenda item is another motion for AKBLG, I'm assuming related to,
Exactly what you suggested I do.
what did I tell you to do?
Building code.
Pardon?
Building code.
Building code, okay. So that's what the item is. Right now, I'm gonna ask for those in favor. We need 2/3 to say this is an item we are going to add to our agenda today. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it passes. Okay, but we're not doing it right now. Could we please take our break and then keep moving along until the end of the meeting? And we'll do it before verbal reports, because if we don't, it's definitely not happening. Does that work, Angela? Okay. So we move that to post in camera. Okay, so we're gonna take our afternoon 10-minute break. We're gonna come back and we're going in camera when we come back. Okay? To all the members of the public online, please, if you can disconnect now. Thank you very much for being present. Connie, if you're there, you're welcome to